after the Montreal Screwjob, what a funny name, the Montreal Screwjob, I remember it kind of broke something inside me where I didn't care anymore. Like I didn't care. It's not my job to come up with ideas. My job is to go out there and wrestle. And I'll do that for you every night, whatever you want, whatever you lay out for me to do, I'll just do it. I'm not going to, although I did often give them ideas and stuff, but I'd kind of lost my smile. And so I really didn't care, but I did. And I think when they were really like, well, Hogan was gone. Like I got hurt. My brother Owen died, and I had wrestled Dean Malenko, who had injured me in a match, and I was off getting a hernia operation. And I was off and getting paid and didn't really need to rush back, but I wanted to go back after Owen died, and I wanted to go back. I didn't want Owen to be the final thing about my career. I was wanting to do great stuff, but I wasn't sure that I could do it. And when they finally started giving me that push at the end where they put maybe champion and all that, but nothing made any sense to me. Like it was always kind of like the Bret Hart from WWE. I remember Vince McMahon said this to me one time, like when I almost signed with WCW before I fought Steve Austin, that Survivor Series match. I remember he goes, the WCW would never know what to do with a Bret Hart. And he said that to me, and every day when I was in WCW, I was like, that whole sentence just kept playing in my head because they didn't know what to do with a Bret Hart. They started to, just kind of water me down and stick me with guys. I remember before that Toronto match, no, I didn't have a match. Well, I guess I did have a match. Was it a match with Goldberg?
No, just an angle.
Just an angle, but best one he ever did. But even that, the Goldberg thing with the steel plate, I always loved that. But I remember I thought of that and came up with that idea. And so then I went to Bill Goldberg first. I said, Bill, I have this idea. I said, I explained the whole thing. I said, we have a title match or something, but I got my jersey on and I have the steel plate underneath, and you hit me with the big spear, and I just get up and roll you over and pin you. And I said, everyone will be like stunned, like no one will know what happened until I pull my shirt off and show everyone the steel plate. And I remember telling Bill Goldberg about it, and Bill was like, I love it. Let's do it. I'm all for it and all that. And I'm like, okay. So then I go to Eric Bischoff, idiot. And first thing he tells me, he goes, Bill Goldberg will never go for it. And I'm thinking, you're the booker. You tell us who wins and who loses, and you're in charge. And you're telling me that Bill Goldberg can tell you that he doesn't want to do something? Like I remember thinking, that's bullshit. And it was bullshit. But I remember like trying to be diplomatic. And so I told him, I said, Bill just told me he loves the idea. And he's all for it. And he goes, Bill Goldberg told you that? And I'm going, yeah, Bill Goldberg loves the idea. He goes, then we'll do it. It's you and Bill. And then I find out that Eric Bischoff goes on a hiatus. He takes about a month off from WCW in the middle of nowhere and goes to France. Goes all the way over to France on a vacation with his wife or something. And he leaves Kevin Nash in charge. And this is about 3 weeks before the show in Toronto. And I remember telling Eric and then Kevin Nash the next day, it's like, Eric has this big angle for Toronto with me and Bill Goldberg, but he told me not to tell, which he did. He said, don't tell anybody what we're doing. Keep it, the only one that needs to know about this idea is me and you and Bill. But that's it. So don't tell anybody. So I tell Kevin Nash is now the booker for two or 3 weeks. And he tells me, which was always struck me, Kevin Nash wanted me to lose to Dean Malenko in just a match on TV. I remember just going like, you jobbed me out to Dean Malenko, who's like 2 feet tall, and I beat Austin, I beat Vince McMahon, I beat all these guys in WWF, and at this time Dean Malenko, all 3 feet of him is going to beat me, right in the middle, like 10, 12 minutes or something. I remember going, it's insane. Like I remember telling Kevin, I said, I don't want to do it. And I never refused to ever do a job for anybody, including Dean Malenko. And they end up sticking me in there with some other wrestler that I beat that night. But I remember it's like I kept telling, Kevin goes, well, what is it, this big angle that you're doing? And I said, well, I can't tell you, because Eric told me not to tell anyone. And he's like, so anyway, for the next 3 weeks, Kevin Nash did his best to kill me off on TV for 3 weeks until we got to Toronto. But luckily, if you remember that time period, I did a promo the week before I got to Toronto. I remember that day, it was somewhere in Florida, and they said, you're off. Like, you don't have you're off the whole show. And I told Kevin Nash, who's in charge for this last week, and Kevin Bischoff's coming back the next week. I said, you can't beat me in the middle of the ring tonight. You can't. And Eric's the only one that knows what we're doing. And so they like I said, he changed it. But they did everything they could do to kill me off before I got to Toronto. And then when I got to Toronto, I get to the building, Maple Leaf Gardens, first time I've been in Canada since I left WWF. And the place is sold out. There's 20,000 people, and there's like 5,000 people in the 30 below weather in Toronto outside the building chanting my name. Like, I remember when I went in the building and got in, you could hear it like, hit man. It was right outside the arena. And I remember Eric Bischoff wanted me to turn heel. He wanted me to go heel on the Canadian fans and tell them, like, what have you done for me lately? I think that's exactly was the line. That you guys haven't done for me, and I don't need, basically kiss my ass to all the Canadian fans, which I'm going, as he's telling me, I'm going, that's suicide. Like, why would I do that? And then Eric Bischoff just panicked. Like, this is where you could sort of see, if you ever seen The Wizard of Oz, and you see that guy behind the curtain that's got the lightning and all that stuff. It's like, when I got to the building that day, he goes, Bill Goldberg doesn't want to do the finish now. And I'm going, what do you mean he doesn't want to do the finish? He goes, he doesn't want to do it now. So I said, well, let me go talk to him. So I go talk to Eric Goldberg. I go, what's going on? And and then it turns out that a bunch of guys got to Bill and kind of got him all worked up and told him this was going to kill him off and that I was going to ruin just kill his momentum and all this. And I remember telling Bill, I said, Bill, we talked about this. I told you this idea 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and you said you loved it. Now it's the day of the show and you're telling me you don't like it. I said, these guys are all they don't know shit. Like, to me, it was one of the best ideas WCW had done in a long time, especially with me anyway. And it was like, so anyway, I got Bill back on side where he goes, okay, I like it, I'm good, I'm back with you and we'll do it. So I go back to Eric Bischoff. I said, Goldberg's fine, he's all good now. And he goes, this is what we're going to have happen. He goes, after you beat Goldberg, we're going to have Hulk. We're going to hit Hulk's music. And Hulk Hogan's going to come down. And I'm going, okay. And then what happens? And then he's going to come in the ring. You guys go to high five. And at the last second, Hogan's going to jump you and beat the crap out of you, right? Like, just beat you down and leave you laying in the middle of the ring. And I said to Eric, I said, so am I wrestling Hogan? He goes, no, you're not wrestling Hogan. I said, is Hogan wrestling Goldberg? He goes, no. I said, well, why the Christ would you why would you do that? You're an idiot. It was like dumbfounded me. And I remember I said, I said, why does Hogan have to come down? And he goes, because this tells you who was running the show. He goes, you got to clear it with Hulk Hogan. This is like the boss telling me that. And I'm like, all right, I'll go talk to Hulk Hogan. So I go, because I really wanted to do the idea with Goldberg. I thought it was gold. You know, it was going to be really good. And maybe the only thing I ever did in the company that was gold. And so I went and found Hulk Hogan. And as soon as I said, why do you have to come down and interfere in my match? He goes, I don't have to interfere in your match. He goes, I don't have to do anything. I said, well, they told me you want to, you know, anyway, so I end up talking to Hogan, and he says, I don't have to come down. So then I go all the way back to Bischoff again, and I go, Hogan doesn't have to come down. He says that he didn't care. He goes, Hogan said that? I said, yeah, Hogan said that. He goes, okay, then we'll do it. And I knew then, like, I just wanted to get the match out there and get it done before they changed it again, or Eric talked to somebody else, you know. But the truth is, even when I did that finish with Goldberg with the steel plate, I remember Kurt Hennig telling me when I came back to the dressing room, he said, Eric Bischoff, if you can just picture this in the back dressing room area, he's running frantic like a hysterical woman, running up and down the hall, yelling at Bill Goldberg to get the hell out to the ring as fast as I can because I'm killing him off. And I remember thinking, these guys are so stupid. You know, they really are. They really were so stupid. And luckily for me, if you ever watch that match or that angle storyline, Goldberg comes out and he's got steam coming out of his ears and smoke coming out of his nostrils. Like he's so like roided up and ready to kill somebody. And I'm thinking, Bill, we talked about this. This is time to do the story that we talked about. Now, like he's all worked up. You know, the thing about it too was that if you ever go back and look at that, I had a Hitman hockey jersey on, but underneath my Hitman jersey, I had a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey. And I remember, because I was going to wear, Ty Domi, one of the hockey players, gave me the jersey that day, signed it to me, gave it to me, and actually wanted me to wear it in the ring, and I was going to wear it in the ring. And I remember like thinking about it and going, if I tell Eric Bischoff that I'm going to wear a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey, it doesn't matter if I tell him that, he's going to make me change it and wear anything but a Toronto, because it'll get too much of a pop. And that's what the head of my company that I'm working for doesn't want me to get a big pop. He wants to keep me in the middle area. So it's kind of like sabotage. And so I remember I said, I didn't tell him about the Toronto Maple Leaf jersey. I put the Calgary Flame or the Hitman jersey on, and I wore that around for a little bit, and then I went back in the dressing room and put the Toronto one on, and then I put the Hitman jersey over top, because I knew it would get a huge pop. But if I told Eric Bischoff I was wearing that jersey, he would have made me change it, which is so crazy because he's in charge of the company. Like this is why I don't give Eric Bischoff any time I don't have anything good to say about Eric Bischoff at all, because he was such a clueless idiot. And he knows it, and I know it. And just everything about that match was like the fact that it came off the way it did. Not that match, but that storyline was just because I made it happen. But I was up against so many obstacles. In fact, that night when it was over, I felt like quitting. I thought that was a good note, like Bret Hart, to ride off and never just quit everything. But I was making too much money, so.